Much like episode 1, we open episode 2 on a recap of both season 1 and season 2, before jumping into the episode proper, which looks like a pre-war scene, but no. It is in fact Shady Sands at its height. It's a bit odd to me here, however, that we have all these brick buildings and paved roads, then we get a man using what looks like a rusty water purifier. Just a bit of visual contrast if you ask me. Anyway, as it turns out, the man at the purifier is just tapping into an unknown pure water source, which, thanks to the first season, we know is from Vault 33. From what they say, it seems that there is their first time doing so. Jump away from there to a man with a caravan walking down a road. We get a joke here of him repeating an oft-heard line from New Vegas. Patrolling the Mojave almost makes you wish for a nuclear winter. And nothing more is thought of it. Until the next scene, that is, when the same man is collapsed on the ground, blood leaking out of his eyes and continuing to repeat the phrase. Waterman, who we now know is Maximus's dad, discovers that this fellow has a mind control device in his neck and a nuclear bomb in his cart. Kudos for turning a joke sinister. Maximus's dad tries to defuse the bomb, but there is a problem there, as an override takes effect with a 3-minute countdown. Maximus's dad rushes home, and we get to see him put into his survival fridge his son before the bombs go off. I very much like the acting in this scene, young Maximus selling the notion of not knowing what was going on, mixed with fear, and acceptance of his parents that they are about to die. However, there is something post this episode that has come to light, which is the size of the bomb really doesn't quite match up with the size of the crater it generated as shown in season 1. Anyway, jump to a short scene of Hank back in Vault 33, cleaning himself up as we hear a child from off-screen asking to read to them. Presumably this is young Lucy, and Hank gives an okie dokie as he puts down his Pip-Boy, showing that the remote detonation has been successful. Of course, we already knew he did it thanks to season 1. However, this scene does raise a question for me. If you will recall, it was Rose McLean who discovered that their water supplies were being tapped, and took that information to Hank, who said it was nothing. She then left with Lucy and Norman and arrived in Shady Sands, where they met Lee Moldava. It was this action that caused Hank to initiate a lockdown under the pretense of a famine, leave Vault 33 and recover his children before destroying the city in an atomic detonation. The way this scene is presented when taking into account that information is that it was Maximus's family who tapped the water, and within the very same day the following events happened. Rose informed Hank. Rose left Vault 33 with the kids. Hank initiated the lockdown. Hank left Vault 33 and recovered the children. Hank walked all the way to Vault 25 and took the mind-controlled tech, attached it to a caravaneer, and gave him a nuclear bomb. Hank walked back to Vault 33. Caravaneer went to Shady Sands. Hank remote detonated the bomb. Now, given the distance from Los Angeles to near Nelson, which is roughly where Lucy and Ghoul Howard were during the Vault 25 scene, it seems highly unlikely to me that this was all done in the same day. Anyway, with that opening scene done, we jump to the, in show terms, present day, with Maximus and the, as Chris Avallone named them, the Brotherhood of Arseholes, as they move through some sort of pre-war plant mowing down feral ghouls. I guess none of these ever heard about the anti-feral serum. Anyway, we get a look once again at the power armour as it just effortlessly smashes through a wall into a room where I think it's supposed to be a joke. I'm not really sure on this one. but it appears to be a room with someone in what could be a sailor outfit, or perhaps a Japanese-style girls' school uniform. I honestly cannot tell. Anyway, they're a ghoul and they get taken out before the knights find what they're after. Some unknown device on a table. Maximus, it seems, is starting to come to understand Titus's point of view, as, if you will recall, he bemoaned being sent out on pre-war recovery missions for things as simple as toasters. On the vertibird, he very much looks like his mind is on other things. Disembarking onto the Pridwin, people cheer for Knight Maximus, with him still seeming to not really care. And Dane, the one who set in motion his promotion, also not looking too enthused. Anyway, switch to the ground below and there is a rather suspicious playground out in the middle of a desert, with two guys opening a rocket to reveal a control panel inside into which they slot a fusion core. Back on the Pridwin, and Maximus, now out of his armour, hands over the device they recovered to Quintus, asking what it is. Quintus, being cryptic, as so many characters seem to be when asked questions in this show, just refers to it as a key to their new home, before it is handed off and slotted into a device on the Pridwin deck. At this time we do not know what this machine does, only that it exists. I guess that the training ground and Philly from Season 1 no longer matter, or are simply not existing right now due to being off screen. Oh, and don't worry about this machine, it is just a MacGuffin, and as far as I can tell, does not come up again in this episode. Quintus says that the Brotherhood has been broken into dozens of chapters, but now they can unify them with a mysterious arsenal that they just happen to be over. Signals are given, the rocket control panel is switched on, and giant fans raise out the desert to blow away the sands to reveal Area 51. I have no idea if there are fans like this in the real Area 51 to keep away the sands, or if in the Fallout universe it is just a really bad sandy problem in that area. But regardless, these fans exist now. Quintus takes this moment to tell Maximus that together they will make better this fallen world, which I am not sure if this is in conflict with his character in Season 1, as he appeared in that to just be power hungry, but there were precious few scenes for him to flesh out his character. I would say, however, that making better a world tends not to involve assaulting civilian towns in order to take them over, and then abandon them, as the implication is here. Maximus gives a smile at this, with Quintus ending off with a "my son," which also elicits a smile from Maximus. Perhaps an indication here that he is starting to see Quintus as a new father figure. But whatever is going on there, we jump now to Lucy and Ghoul Howard walking down a dirt road in some scrubland. Lucy takes a swig of water, and Ghoul Howard quite rudely just demands he has some too, which both is and is not a contradiction of his character from Season 1, as he both does and does not need to drink, as evidenced by his being buried for a year, and the constant state of him taking drinks as he's walking around. So I am quite honestly unsure which is the correct state for him to be in. Perhaps both. Perhaps he has Schrodinger's internal organs that both do and do not require food and water until observed. Also, what happened to his canteen that he had in Season 1? It's just vanished. Anyway, he snatches hers and takes a drink, to which he gets admonished by Lucy, with her saying that his family will not like who he has become. The expression on his face tells me he does not care. Anyway, they walk on, passing by the ruins of a hospital with a wooded hill in the background. I do not have any clue where they are in this show, but based on their last known location of Novak, and given that they are trying to get to New Vegas, I would guess somewhere near the Sloan Canyon National Conservation Area, as that appears to be the only place along the probable route on Google Maps that is shown as green. Anyway, Lucy hears a cry for help from the hospital. How very convenient that someone happens to be in trouble right as they are passing by. Lucy wants to check it out, but Ghoul Howard says that empathy is like mud. You can lose your boots in it. A strange idiom, but I get what he means. From his perspective, looking out for others is probably only going to result in you ending up getting in more trouble than before. Lucy insists. Ghoul Howard says that he used to be like her, stupid, but that the post-war world has hardened him to the pleas of people in need, which does tie into his initial characterization from Season 1 of just hunting down people for fun. Still, Lucy goes inside and Ghoul Howard follows. Poking through the ruins, the pair come across two people wearing simple white clothing with a big red cross on them. Those of you who know the games will recognise these as Legion slaves, which Ghoul Howard notes that they are rather far west from where they would be expected. At the very least, this tells us that Lucy and Ghoul Howard have not crossed the Colorado River. Lucy says she has one Stimpack left and goes to get it, which Ghoul Howard tells her is not a good idea, saying they do not deserve saving. Lucy hands over water to the woman while Ghoul Howard approaches the man and, offering false aid to him, kills the man and cuts off some flesh to eat. Now, much like the water situation, it is unclear if Ghoul Howard needs to eat or just wants to eat. Schrodinger's internal organs and all that. Lucy stops him from doing the same thing to the woman, but oh no, something is not right with the meat, and Ghoul Howard throws it up. It turns out Slave Man was chock full of poison. Cue skittering sounds as you see the vents moving as something is inside them. Whatever is in here with our plucky adventurers has apparently just been sitting and doing nothing while the slaves cried for help. All the time it took Lucy and Ghoul Howard to get near them, enter the hospital, go down into it, and have this very scene. How very patient of them. Tension rises as there are more bangs and clatters. Slave woman saying they are back, before bark scorpions launch themselves at everyone. Now, this does lead me to question the events that led up to here, as it would appear that these two slaves entered this hospital for whatever reason, were attacked by these bark scorpions, the man getting near fatally poisoned, and the scorpions just left. This pair do not seem to be in a fit state to be moving around, and mention of them being back seems to suggest that the bark scorpions were previously in this room with them, as otherwise she would surely have said something like, "They have found us," to indicate the slaves had fled from the bark scorpions previously. Side note, I am guessing the scorpion on top of Lucy is an animatronic or puppet of some kind, and I think it is good stuff. Ghoul Howard shoots a couple, Lucy smashes one with a pan, and then the barricaded door moves. It seems that the makeshift blockade the slaves had put up is not holding back whatever is beyond them. Refer back to my previous statement on the scorpions being very patient here, as the barricade does not hold back whatever is on the other side. Dog runs away at this point. Bursting through is a rad scorpion, which quickly devours an unlucky bark scorpion whole. Given how Ghoul Howard was not particularly scared by the Gulper in Season 1, he certainly is by this monster. He tries his best to save himself as Lucy finishes off the bark scorpions and saves Slave Woman, but Ghoul Howard, being a dick, pulls her in the way of the stinger. Lucy rescues Slave Woman as Ghoul Howard gets a stinger in the leg before shoving a grenade down the rad scorpion's mouth, and it explodes. Now for the scene payoff. Remember a few minutes ago when Lucy said she has only one Stimpack? Well, now she has two people asking for it, and she has to make a choice. Slave Woman, who is asking for help, or Ghoul Howard, who is an uncaring cannibalistic arsehat. As it turns out, she chose Slave Woman, reasoning that she would die without it, but Ghoul Howard will not. Very true, given his regeneration powers and seeming resistance to chemicals. Ghoul Howard spits about her golden rule, which she retorts it is for people, and that is not what he is. She then escorts Slave Woman out, leaving Ghoul Howard to recover on his own, although with a promise to return later. Shift now to Vault 31, with all the junior executives being thawed out. Interestingly, none of them in Vault suits. And then Norman enters the scene from the platform. Most of them are changing outfits, and there are questions of where Bud Askins is, and commenting that they're only supposed to be thawed out one at a time. This tells us that they were all informed of his plan to breed super managers before going in, but that one line does raise a question of just how Vault 32 was cleaned so quickly. It is suggestive that this is the first time they have all come out together, but then they must have all been thawed out together just 3 weeks ago in order to clean up said vault, as there is nobody else who could have done it. Regardless of that, Norman says there has been a change of plans, before we get one of them falling from the ceiling and not breaking their neck on impact with the steel floor. Ha ha ha, what a joke! The falling part is kind of understandable, given the angle of the top pods. And speaking of pods, there looks to be 9 per side, per bay, so 18 per bay, with roughly 5 more bays that are still frozen. So that is roughly 90 more junior executives that are not getting thawed out by Norman, and are just going to be left here forever. Quite probably, this is because there's a blue screen there, and the actors didn't actually know there's anything beyond that point. Anyway, Norman tries his best to take charge, telling them that it's been over 200 years, and that it's Reclamation Day, but Bud Askins is unfortunately deceased. He is not, as it turns out, he's just stuffed in a bucket, which, as a brain on a Roomba, he can never get out of, and has been sentenced to a slow death when his power runs out. Norman says they have to work together to get out, which causes everyone to start to panic as they think they are trapped. And you can almost see the gears moving in Norman's head as he starts to figure out just how to salvage the situation. With that short scene done, we jump across to Hank. The majority of this scene I will condense here. Hank gets Rat. Tests control device. Rat explodes. Repeat. The control test, it seems, is to get a rat to sit at a tiny terminal, and the last one almost managed it before exploding. Back to Area 51, with the Brotherhood of Arseholes as they crack open the hangar and get to investigating what's inside. 2 of them open up a freezer and exclaim, with the camera switching angles, to reveal a frozen Zetan alien inside. But it is a joke, you see, as they could not care less about alien life, just that there's a working freezer here, which, to be fair, is somewhat in line with how the Brotherhood has been presented in this show thus far. We then get scenes of them investigating the various things found around in Area 51. The first of which looks similar to the prototype, Pip-Boy from Fallout 4. The second, a Zetan rod from Fallout 3, a terracotta soldier and a Greek statue, the Declaration of Independence, the Ark of the Covenant, and what I think is the cryo laser. Then we get a dumb. 2 knights are playing with a plasma grenade, which Maximus tells them to stop. Their response shows that they knew it was a live grenade, but were just being dumb for the sake of being dumb. Just as with the next scene, where they uncover a pristine car and roll it outside to see how it blows up. Brotherhood of Arseholes, everybody! Now, the next scene is confusing to me because it shows cold fusion being started up using the capsule from Season 1. What is confusing is that it is unclear if the machine they are booting up was already in Area 51, or if this is the device that Lee Moldava built and they just ripped it out of Griffith Observatory. Either way, all those homes that we got to see blink on at the end of Season 1 are now back to being in complete darkness, as there was only one cold fusion capsule. Dane enters the scene with Random Initiate asking what they will do with it, to which she responds, nothing good. I'm not entirely sure where this cynical Dane has come from, as in Season 1 she seemed perfectly fine with the Brotherhood. Perhaps it was watching them nearly execute her friend for lying to them? I do not know. Anyway, we jump to Maximus washing his face with another random initiate asking why he is doing so. Maximus asks what their duty is, which random initiate number 2 says is to fix the fallen world. Maximus says that sometimes to solve a big problem you have to make it a small problem, and you can start by bettering yourself. He certainly has changed from the idiot of the last season into someone a little bit wiser, given his experiences that we have seen, and I am all for it. Going over to his armour, he starts to give it a polish. Oh yes, I should point out that if you remember, this suit of armour was left outside of Vault 4 without power, and I forgot to mention it in the earlier section, but this means that the Brotherhood must have gone to the giant Vault 4 door and picked it up, and then maybe decided to not crack open the vault to get all the pre-war tech inside, or maybe they did. There's no mention of it, so who really knows, I guess. It's not on screen, therefore it doesn't matter. Cynical Dane pops in, saying that the armour will always get dirty again, perhaps as a metaphor for the Brotherhood of Assholes. Maximus retorts that it is better to polish dirty steel than have it stay clean. Better to be using the tool to some end than have it just on display. Apparently this was a line from the Codex, which Maximus and Dane say they used to joke about telling each other. And Maximus says that the Brotherhood is as good as it gets. He is just trying to make it better, you see. Which does lead one to question how exactly a bunch of morons in power armour who attack towns for no given reason is as good as it gets. And if it is, well, the world is quite truly screwed. Dane mentions that he met Lucy, which seems to hit him emotionally, as from his perspective she offered him a place to live away from the Brotherhood and then abandoned him on the observatory. Poor guy is heartbroken. Anyway, Cynical Dane says that they read the comms and that Quintus has called for a mysterious meeting, the first we hear of it. But the Commonwealth was not told, and they will not let him seize power without a war. Question: if he has not told them, how would they know? Perhaps it is a vault-tec situation where they can intercept messages from the other side of the country before they have been sent. Time and distance mean nothing to the Brotherhood of Arseholes. An alarm interrupts the conversation and we switch to outside, where 3 more N-ships have teleported into existence over Area 51. We then switch to a new scene where we get to see the heads of these ships, who are apparently all from their own chapters. We have Platehead from Grand Canyon, Lady from Yosemite, and other guy from Coronado? Perhaps it's supposed to be Colorado? I can't really tell with the pronunciation. Quintus waxes lyrical about how long it's been and the axis of power has shifted. Other guy asks where the Commonwealth representative is, to which Quintus says they would just come in and take the cold fusion. They begin to comment on how much power the Commonwealth has, with Quintus trying to bring them together, and we get the grenade morons again. Maximus takes the live plasma grenade from them as the leaders start to argue amongst themselves. Eventually Quintus has had enough and hands them all fusion cores, getting them all on board by offering them literal power. Jumping away now to Lucy and Slave Woman as they walk through the woods. Lucy, making small talk, says she likes the outfit, to which Slave Woman seems to reply, "Gratias," which Lucy says is Latin and gives praise. Slave Woman says she is a kind profligate, which confuses Lucy, but she says thanks anyway. Continuing the conversation, Lucy says she's headed to Vegas, which Slave Woman tells her to head home, as she would not want to get raped by the wrong people. Emerging from the woods, there are people with torches just standing on the hillside in plain view, menacingly, and they stay standing there perfectly still for the 10 seconds of the scene, as if they have nowhere else to be and nothing else to do. They're just standing there in silence for the benefit of the audience. Anyway, Slave Woman has walked off, and the people on the hill still don't do anything as Lucy carries on down the road looking for her. But alas, Lucy has forgotten the golden rule of Fallout. People not on screen cease existing. Back now to 31, where the junior execs are bumbling around, undecided on what to do. Norman stands up and, bluffing a little bit, takes charge, organising them all into finding a way out. Curiously, we see that all these junior executives are of remarkably low IQ, as Norman convinces them by offering merit dots, which are just round plasters, band-aids for you non-British watchers, which brings them all into line. Two ideas are floated: examining the ventilation system, which is probably how the centipede got in, and getting water out of the fire suppression system. Now, I know I just said that these people were all idiots, but as someone who works with electrical equipment, the fire suppression system in Vault 31 would not be water based on all the electrical gear there. It would mostly be CO2, which is not exactly drinkable. Scene over, and we jump back to Hank, who is not having success with the mind control rats. So he changes test subjects after passing by the premium elite cryopods. He thaws out one of the, presumably, vault-tec staff and implants him with a control device. Again, not much happens in this scene. The two talk as Hank turns up the power controller to the expected explosion of the man's head, and we then leave. Back with Lucy, and a good couple of hours have passed as it is now night time as she continues to look for Slave Woman, coming across a dilapidated and seemingly abandoned building, but with a pair of banners on it. Banners depicting a bull. There is a snap, sinister music, and several men emerge from the darkness to surround her. It's a trap! She tries to lighten the situation, and we cut away once more to Vault 31. The fire suppression plan appears to have been abandoned, as a human ladder is being made to access a maintenance hatch on the ceiling. It is not a very effective maintenance hatch, if you ask me, as anyone coming down it has no way to reach the ground floor safety unless they brought a ladder with them. But either way, the junior executives get it open and turn to Norman to lead them out through it. Now, I could be wrong here, but the way Norman acts, it could be that he has a fear of heights. But he goes up anyway, climbing the ladder and leading everyone outside. Success! Being from pre-war, one guy comments on it being dirty, with glasses bemoaning that the mall has gone. But Norman says it's beautiful, which to him, I suppose, it would be. He would probably have been too young to properly remember his trip to Shady Sands, as Lucy could barely remember it herself. To him, it is a world of wonder, and it will be interesting to see where this goes, as far as I can remember, this is the last scene of this group from the trailers. Anyway, enough of all that as we go to the final scenes of this episode, with Dumb and Dumber, the grenade morons, punching each other in a ring for the amusement of the crowd. Maximus seems to be the only one not impressed, which is understandable given how he has acted through this episode, and turns to leave as one of the grenade morons is knocked out, only to be stopped by Big Beard. Big Beard confirms Maximus is the one hailed for killing Moldava, and says he could take him. Maximus tries to de-escalate the situation, but Big Beard won't let him. Quintus, seeing this, seems to indicate that they should fight next, and Maximus moves to get his armour, but Big Beard stops him and says no, they're going in skins. Thus the two enter the ring, and while Maximus is getting ready, Big Beard cheap shots him and starts dominating the fight. Maximus, for his part, cheap shots Big Beard right back with a nut shot and a kick. But Big Beard pulls out a knife and nobody gives a shit for some reason. The stakes are raised and Big Beard goes back on the attack, but Maximus is able to dodge and turn tables. Big Beard has stabbed himself, but it does not end there. Everybody cheers as Big Beard tries to strangle Maximus, while Maximus slowly drives the knife into Big Beard's chest. Nobody gives a shit that Big Beard dies via knife during what was, from all outward appearances, supposed to just be a boxing match. Not even Quintus, who apparently holds Maximus in high regard. Then, out of nowhere, a vertibird enters the scene, and out jumps a man who identifies himself as Paladin Harkness from the Commonwealth. Oh no, they do have time and space warping powers, and have heard the summons that was not directed at them over the other side of the country. The scene ends fairly amicably, with Harkness seeing the dead body of Big Beard behind Maximus, and nods approvingly. And that is the end of episode 2. I believe that this is a step up from the previous episode, with more going on in it than just people walking and talking. The Shady Sands scene was very well done indeed, if causing confusion with the timeline. We have Maximus and Dane questioning the motives of the Brotherhood of Arseholes and the introduction of the Legion, even if their scenes did amount to mostly standing around and looking menacing. Vault 31, take it or leave it really. It's nice that they've given Norman a seeming storyline to follow of being the unironic culmination of Bud's plan, but that ending scene is not good at all. The Brotherhood have a codex which they follow, which was stated in Season 1 to state that no brother should bring harm to another. It was this that resulted in Maximus's punishment of being sent out on mission, yet here we have one man deliberately trying to kill another man, while everyone else watched on and cheered. Sure, Lady says that it's open to interpretation in order to justify a civil war, but Quintus is shown as wanting Maximus alive, as he will be the first of a new breed of knight under his leadership. So while I was going to give this episode a 7, that scene and the 2 grenade morons are causing me to drop it back down to a 6. Cut them out and it would be much better. Now, as for everything it got wrong, not much that I noticed in this episode, as most of it took place outside of any area covered by the games or expanded lore. The only things I spotted were that there are being 4 Pridwins, and flown to the Commonwealth in 2287. But 3 more were apparently built afterwards and sent off to these other splinter chapters. And finally, well, that's it for another week. I hope you'll tune in again for next week's one, for episode 3. Thank you, and good day. mines. According to the law, it took 6 years to build the first in DC from the remains of the Adams Air Force Mobile Base in 2277. Also, there is nothing indicating a Brotherhood chapter is located in the Grand Canyon. Not only is it a Legion-held territory, but it is also the site of the Sierra Madre, both of which would have had conflict with a Brotherhood chapter stationed there. The Cryolator is a unique weapon located in Vault 111, created by its overseer.